Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Stryperdrive. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co-host,
Rex.
And friends, today we are certainly honored to have the one and only Miss Daryn Hinton. Welcome, Miss Daryn.
Welcome.
So happy to be here. You know I love talking about my Stryper boys, and it's an honor to be with you too.
And friends, you know, if you don't know, I mean, the name, you know, Miss Daryn Hinton. Miss Daryn was the former co-manager of Stryper, and as well, she was a former child actress. Miss Daryn has appeared on numerous television shows, including Lassie, One Step Beyond, Rescue 8, Death Valley Days, Shootout at Medicine Bend, and the Tennessee Ernie Ford Show. And did I miss anything there, Miss Daryn, on that?
Boy, I don't even remember some of them, but yeah. I did about 50 things when I was young. Yeah, so those are some of them.
And your father, Ed, was an actor, your sister, Darcy, and your brother, Darby Hinton, who also is an actor. And he's appeared on Mr. Ed, Route 66, Wagon Train, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, and probably best known, perhaps, for his role as Israel Boone on The Daniel Boone Show. So
yes, and he was also, that was a wild time in my life, because that was 6 years as a little girl growing up and going to the set every day after school. And I don't know if you're familiar with Fess Parker, who played Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, all those, but he was like an incredible father figure, and we had lost our father when we were 3. So that was an awesome experience. And my brother also, he's a working actor now. He's always working, always doing something. And he was also Days of Our Lives. Oh, yeah, Days of Our Lives for a few years as Ian Griffith. And
so what ages would you have been, Daryn, doing this child acting? How old were you?
I did it from 1. I started when I was 1, and I quit acting when I was 12. I actually had a pushing, shoving fight with my mother, and I said, I don't want to do it anymore. You know, it was a family business. My father, my grandfathers, you know, were even though they owned hotels and things and were businessmen, they were also actors. And so it was kind of a family thing. It ran in all of our bloods, and it was normal. But I'm a middle child, so I like to be behind the scenes instead of the one that's out in front. And it got crazy just being my brother's sister because of all the interviews and the publicity. You know, my mother dyed my hair on an airplane once. Can you imagine? You get airplanes, and I'm in the bathroom as a little 10-year-old girl, because on the other side, there were all these interviews, and she didn't have time to do my roots to match my little brother, okay? Because I had blonde hair, but she dyed it so that it would match my brother. My brother's hair was normally, it was blonde, it was natural. But can you imagine in the airplane, the stewardess, she starts knocking. A little later, she starts knocking louder, and then she's pounding. We're talking a middle child. Some of this can really, you know, damage you. But my mother was bigger than life. She was Hollywood. So we were brought up very, very Hollywood.
I can't imagine having my hair dyed, Miss Daryn. So let's see. Is your brother's godfather, was he Charlton Heston?
Yes.
And then your godmother was Jane Russell, is that right?
Jane Russell.
Yes. So I'm well aware of who both of those actors were. So
and my other godmother was Bobo Rockefeller, who, although she's part of the Rockefeller family, she acted too, and that's how we met. Was my daddy was on the road with her doing Tobacco Road as an actress. So
okay.
And then Tyrone Power named me. He's Zorro. He probably the most handsome actor who ever lived. He was amazing. And he named me Daryn after his daughter, Taryn, Taryn.
Okay.
And
yeah. Well, very neat. And, you know, I was, in and Rex and I, we always do our research, right, to kind of know a little bit about some of the more in-depth details. And one of my favorite, when I was a little kid, I was born in '71, and one of my all-time favorite shows was Emergency. You know, John Gage and Roy DeSoto. And I'm looking at your, you know, your acting. What am I trying to say? The shows that you were on, and I'm like Rescue 8, and something made me investigate that. And lo and behold, it was about about 12 years prior to Emergency, but it was filmed at the same fire station.
Wow.
And yeah, and I thought Emergency was the very first fireman show, and by profession I am a firefighter, and so that's, you know, I guess all that kind of, you know, stuck with me all these years. But Rescue 8 was a firefighter show, but prior to Emergency, and I never knew that such a show existed. So I'm like, wow, you know, that's pretty cool.
Wow. Thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm really into firemen. I helped with vacations after 9/11 for the New York firefighters when they came. We brought them to Hawaii, some of them, and I got the torment firsthand of what they were going through.
Right. Well, thank you for doing that, Ms.
Yes, thank you.
343 fallen brothers and sisters there with the fire department. So, you know, something never to be forgotten for certain. And
absolutely.
Well, Miss Daryn, do you have, while we're on the, you know, talking about Hollywood there, are there any especially fond memories that maybe you can share besides your hair getting dyed? Is there anything else, you know, anything especially from your Hollywood days specifically that, you know, might stick out with you that you can share?
Well, as far as acting, I don't know, you know, my mother was known for knowing the most famous people in the world and the people that changed the world type of people. And she was the biggest party giver in Hollywood for theme parties. She would do magnificent parties. And it wasn't her job, it was her passion. And so we would have the most amazing people at our parties, but I never thought of them as, wow, that's a celebrity, because they were just always around. Mm-hmm. And I kind of never got autographs. I never got autographs. And because it was, why would I want somebody's autograph, you know? And we're all different. Everybody's different. And that was just it. And I remember one time, I live up on Bel Air Road, 1234 Bel Air Road I lived. And we went trick-or-treating one time. And when we went trick-or-treating, Bel Air, not that many people have candy and all of that. But I remember we went one time to this big, beautiful house that Sly and the Family Stone owned at one point, had the big studio. And this time it was the Mamas and the Papas. And I remember they came out and they were scurrying around because they didn't have anything for us. So they're running around, scurrying around, all the Mamas and Papas type of thing. And they came back with their autograph. And I just was like, wow, why would they do that? I mean, it was one of those crazy things where, wow, that would have been a really incredible autograph to have.
So do you have their autograph still, or?
No.
Oh, no. Man. That'd be awesome, you know, to have like Cass Elliott's autograph or somebody's, you know.
Yeah. You know, because of my brother, we did all the parades and everything. I just remember, you know, Diana Ross and everybody was at one parade with us, Kentucky Fried Chicken at another, the President's Son. It's a fun life. It can really take you the wrong way, just like rock and roll can. But my brother always loved it. And he so many kids say, oh, my life is screwed up because of it. And he just loved every minute of it. So it was nice, but I almost like being his sister more than being the actress or the one making the movies rather than the one on camera.
Right. So are you, now, Miss Daryn, are you currently talking about making movies? I know that, you know, seeing some of your material, are you currently working on some projects right now?
I love making movies, and maybe in about a year and a half, we'll be coming up with a movie. You know, we also have videos being, but that's kind of like a secret project that nobody's going to know about for a year. And spiritual, very Jesus, but not a Christian, not in the Christian box.
Marketplace or whatever.
Yeah, I got you.
What?
Not in the Christian marketplace, so to speak, but a Christian themed movie. Or,
yeah, because we're all Christians.
Right.
So
Right.
everybody in it's just, that's who we are.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, kind of like Stryper started. People, I remember seeing Oz. I went to go see him at a Blood Good thing. He was doing Blood Good, and the woman got up to introduce him from some record company, some Christian record company. And I remember her talking about Stryper. Oh yeah, they're the ones that crossed over and made it so huge. And I was just like, whoa, we never crossed over. We were never a part of that community. People don't realize what Stryper went through. They don't realize how hard it was, and that the guys just had to put on their blinders and go straight, because you have people on TV coming out against you. I mean, we're sitting there in the living room in our Stryper office. I get off subject, I'm sorry. In our Stryper office, in our Stryper office, and here's Jimmy Swaggart holding up a picture of Stryper. We're all together, all the guys, and saying they are not Christian. They're doing it for the money. And, you know, that's, and Robert got saved by Jimmy Swaggart, you know. He dropped down in front of that TV set and gave his life to the Lord because of Jimmy Swaggart. And this is what's going on. And it was so funny because so many pastors that all came against us from the pulpit were actually people that had never gone to see them. Oh, no. They're bad. They're, you know. But then again, I can kind of understand that, because the pastor I came from that I was working with before I met Stryper was totally against them, so.
For my reading up and everything, in the way that I interpreted this, in anything that we ask, Miss Daryn, please, or say, please correct us where we're wrong. As I've interpreted this, in 1982 is whenever you became a born-again Christian and you kind of like left Hollywood, meaning you stopped acting. You decided to stop acting, and you wanted to kind of really take the time to pursue your newfound faith at that time. And I've read a quote from you, if this is true, I became a miracle junkie, loving a one-on-one relationship with God, walking in miracles, and feeling him guiding me. Is that a correct quote?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, and so Miss Daryn, what was the catalyst then for you realizing, hey, I need the Lord in my life? I mean, what was going on where you just said, I need the Lord, you know?
Okay, so I came from that Hollywood background, and, you know, people would look at my position or where I was and, wow, I would like to be her type of thing. So, you know, all the discoing and all the clubs and doing it, fun all over the world. And so I didn't want to know God. I didn't need God. I thought he was a crutch, you know. I was dropped off at church as a little girl because my daddy died in front of our eyes at some point in an airplane. And from there, my mother kind of got mad at God. So she would drive us by the Episcopal Church in Beverly Hills, and she'd drop us off, and we'd go in, and we'd go to church, and she wouldn't go in. But in that, I never learned anything. I didn't know who Jesus was, or anything. I just wanted the donuts and to torment the little boys in front of me type of thing.
Free donuts.
and then I went to Marymount, and oh man, those nuns were so mean. I went for 1 year, and they would get us in front of the chapel, and they'd make sure our hands were out and they were clean enough and our shoes were clean enough to go see God and to do all of the stations and repeat all these words that we had to memorize, or else we were doing it wrong. So there wasn't a God I wanted to meet. I figured if that's what those nuns represent, I don't want to know him. And so there wasn't any desire to know God. And I wasn't against him. I just,
Right.
No reason. Okay, so my mother, you know, she was that flamboyant, amazing party giver with a heart of gold. Just, you know, she'd walk in a room and you wouldn't even be looking in that direction and you'd turn around. She was warm, wonderful, and kind of awesome. And so she passed away, and we had this big party. We had this amazing party for her where Motown sent one of their top 10 bands, High Energy, and they sang a song to Mom. And then people got up to speak. Rosie got up to speak, and all kinds of different people, amazing people. Tom Selleck and the one in Hawaii.
Miss Daryn, when you said Rosie, was that Rosie Greer?
Yes,
Awesome.
Rosie Greer.
Awesome.
Yeah, because he was on my brother's TV show. He was our friend. That's how Stryper got to know him. And so they all were talking about God from the stage. And I'm the one that invited them all. And every person was talking, you know, about God, my mother, and love. And this was not a funeral. It was not anything negative. It was a big party with amazing music. And all of the waiters were like adorable, from the hottest restaurant, Gladstone's. He had sent all of them because he loved my mom to be the waiters and things. And everything was, people were saying it's the best party they'd ever been to, not, you know, a funeral or wake or something like that. And so they're all talking about God. And it's like, wow, why? Anyway, so I wake up the next morning at this house where we had the thing, and I had $500 to pay the maids, and bathing suit of sarong, and my $500. And I got up way before everybody, so I got to go take a drive. So I went and I took a drive, and I was going to come back and pay them, and then I'm just going to go to the beach. I got to the beach and I went to my sister, I've got to keep going. I've just got to keep going. And so I ended up driving for 4,100 miles for a solid month. And all along, and I didn't know where I was going. I had no plans to go. You know, my godmother had been there, Jane Russell, and she had said, you know, come visit me sometime. And I just drove, and every place from, I remember Hearst Castle, the ticket taker starts talking to me about God, the bus driver. I mean, everybody. And I'm going, what? Like, what is going on? And that's when I started to get a call. You know, I mean, I started going, okay, what's going on here? And so I decided I would go see my godmother in Arizona, Jane Russell. I'm in Beverly Hills right now, and then going down and seeing Jane Russell. So all the stuff that happened, more God people, and so there's this highway and no cars on it. So I get out of the car and I'm screaming up to the sky, okay, God, so if you're real, reveal yourself to me. Sorry, I still get emotional. Reveal yourself to me. And so then I was going to go to Jane's house. So I even though Jane was my godmother, she hadn't really sunk in as a godmother yet. She hadn't done her duty because my mother's alive, didn't really need anybody. And so I thought, the one person I am not going to hear about God from is my godmother, Jane Russell, the bombshell of her era. And so I get there and she goes, oh, the ladies are getting together for a pray. Do you mind? And it's going to be here. It's going to be at the house. The pray? I think of all these ladies with knitting needles. I'm like, oh no, that's going to be hell. And I said, okay, well, I'll stay. And then we all sat around her bed and held hands. And something came over me, and it was like, yes, God was there and God was in the room. And, you know, my godmother was really a powerful woman. I mean, okay, there's a whole Katy Perry story in there, because Katy Perry's mother used to do the little Bible studies in Jane's home and stuff. So she always had prophets and powerful people there. So I kind of go, okay, I kind of got that God. I gave him a direct question. He gave me a direct answer. You can't get more direct than that. I mean, I felt God all over me. When we prayed, it was like those kind of prayer meetings where it's like, oh my gosh. So then I'm driving again, and I come to another highway, you know, going over everything in my mind, just going, oh my gosh, that was wild. And it's an empty highway again. I get out of the car and I scream, okay, so what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do? Because my mother, I used to give parties for people with unlimited budgets, you know, the big Hollywood type parties. But my mother was so much a part of it because she knew all the celebrities and everybody who owned the private, you know, discos and getting the back room and everything. And so I said, what am I going to do with my life? Come on. You know, I get it. I get that you're real. So then the next house I went to, my mother said, collect interesting people. There's not enough time in this world to know everybody. So just collect interesting people. Where there were these people I met that she was like from the South with a bob and bright pink lipstick, and her husband, and they were really interesting, and they got out of a limo with like 8 Fijians wearing parayas. And so I thought, oh, okay, those are interesting people. So anyway, I didn't know them, but I knew they lived a little further. So I called them. I said, hey, I want to see, you know, I want to come by and see you. I know we don't know each other well. And they said, okay, come. I'll take you to the Grand Canyon in my airplane. I mean, it's crazy stuff. Anyway, and so then I get there and I talk to them and I'm with them, and they own like the biggest car mechanic school in the country. Nothing to do with Hollywood. And by the end, being there for just a few days, the man said, okay, I'll back. I didn't ask him for anything. He said, I'll back you in anything you want to do. I mean, come on. I mean, talk about the God thing. First you ask if he's real, then you ask, what am I going to do with your life? And here's this man that just says, hey, I'll back you in anything you do. So at that point, I'm kind of really a believer, yeah. Even though I don't know anything. I don't know anything about Jesus. So, yeah, it's a long story.
Well, so Miss
that's where the miracle junkie came. The one thing that's different, like with me, I didn't learn about Jesus in a book. I didn't learn the Bible. I learned by talking and responding. So that's why it's a real one-on-one thing with me. And I can't just do the sitting in church and not getting anything out of it. I have to have lightning bolts.
Sure. No, I totally get that, you know, and at the end of the day, and ultimately it's that personal relationship. Yeah. You know, and Jesus is the one who, you know, between us and our Father. I mean, he's the one, you know, he's the bridge, he's the Messiah. So Miss Daryn, you had so you did receive the Lord at one point, and thank you for sharing that story. It's very fascinating and awesome. And so then you were on your journey with the Lord. And so that was in 82. So then if I'm doing the math, then in a relatively short amount of time, your relationship with the Lord, it would meld with the realm of rock and roll. And, you know, Miss Daryn, within the pages of Stryper history, you have played a pivotal role of great import. And friends out there who will be watching this, this is what we want to get into, is the, you know, Stryper, early Stryper, classic Stryper history with Miss Daryn, who was their one of their former co-managers. Now Miss Daryn, Brett Christensen, Ron Campbell, Kenny Metcalf, we've had the privilege to meet them, and they certainly speak highly of you. And I believe it might have been Ron and Kenny. They've alluded to this story. And so here we are talking, you know, face to face with you right now. Miss Daryn, as we've kind of interpreted, you were attending a church at the time then, and I think you might have been saying this earlier. The way the story unfolds, the pastor of this church, Stryper, was starting to make a name for themselves, and they were Rock's regime before Stryper, but they were making a name for themselves, and your pastor sent you on some kind of a mission to investigate them. I mean, what was all that about?
Well, it was, so from all that Hollywood, I dove into the church like 24/7. Sometimes I would drive to 2 church services in one day, and they were all 2-hour services or longer, you know? And so when I started with the Eagle's Nest, so I would go to the hiding place, which was up in West LA, and then I'd go down to around Newport for the Eagle's Nest. And he was doing backward masking, like where you would do the devil. It would say things like the devil and all that kind of stuff. And so he was very much against rock and roll. It was the devil's music. And he would do these big crusades. It was his thing. It was the evils of rock and roll. And so I would even help put them on, like in Hawaii, we did the Shell Auditorium, and I was just trying to get non-Christians there, because Christians always come and bring a friend. No, I want the non-Christians, and I would go on the dirtiest radio stations and you know, say we were doing a rock and roll seminar, or, you know, getting really crafty, and it would be amazing. The biggest hecklers would be the ones up to the front, but it was all just to get the kids, because I had this thing for the kids because of what was going on in rock and roll back then. I mean, it was evil, my gosh, you know? And some people can say it was just a gimmick. It was fun. It was also really satanic, and whether they knew it or were doing it as a gimmick or not. You know, you'd walk into, I remember Aloha Stadium in Hawaii, and there's a floor-to-ceiling devil for Dio, you know, and you know, taking the chainsaw to the mannequins and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it was dark, and people were giving altar calls to Satan back then. So yeah, I was kind of, okay, my pastor says they're not good too, type of thing. So I'd never heard of Stryper. I really wasn't a heavy metal person. I kind of like soul music, but I had this heart for the kids. And I remember a prayer one time as I was driving, you know, for 6 hours to look for a place to do a venue for a crusade in Arizona. And I just started crying one of these overwhelming prayers that just took me. I had to pull over by the side of the road saying, save the kids, save the kids. And it was really strong. And I actually look back and think that was my opening to Stryper, even though I didn't know who they were or expect anything. Okay. So then with Gary, he was like, yeah, they're not, you know, these Christian rock bands are, and my girlfriend, who was with the church, brought me a picture of them. and how religious I had gotten, it was like, oh, they couldn't be Christian. Because my whole life had changed to the church, 24/7, I'm in a church. They must know more than I do about God. So I dove in. And yeah, so where was I?
Well, we were talking, Miss Daryn, about you. My initial question was
Yes, your initial question. I'm sorry.
No. This is wonderful. I'm all ears. Believe me. No, Miss Daryn. So my question was about your initial mission. The pastor sent you on a mission to investigate Stryper.
Okay, so the girlfriend brought me a picture. So then I just basically, because I was really close to the pastor, I just basically said, well, look at these guys. And he goes, oh, yeah, they don't look Christian type of thing. I'm still the one that went. My girlfriend wanted me to go. And I just said, well, maybe, because you feel that stuff like, okay, if the opportunity arises, am I supposed to do this? Okay, it's right in front of me. I think I'm supposed to do this. So I went with her, and that was a really wild thing. Watching it, I'm watching, and I'm their show opening up for Bon Jovi at the country club, and
was that when they were billed as Ron Campbell said? Was that when they were Stryper? S-T-R-I-P.
They spelled it wrong. Yeah. They spelled it wrong. Can you imagine? They spelled it wrong. Oh gosh. So I'm watching and I'm thinking, okay, because when we used to do the Crusades, we always got the Christian kids and maybe they'd bring a friend. That's not who we wanted, or that's not who I wanted. The pastor was fine with it. That's not who I wanted. And so here I am in this place, and the kids are listening to Stryper and eating it up. And when Michael would talk, everybody would go silent, and he'd say something about Jesus, and I'm just like, oh my. It was amazing. But yet I still thought, maybe they're still doing it as a gimmick. Maybe they're still doing it as a gimmick. And so my girlfriend took me backstage. She really embarrassed me because she said, oh, she's got to pray with you like I'm some big deal or something. And it's like, gosh, just calm down. And so I ended up praying. We had a little prayer with like Robert. It was Robert and somebody else. And then the prayer got it did get amazing. It was a kind of amazing prayer. And then I'm so anointed. I mean, just the whole, you could feel it in the atmosphere. I'm not saying it was me. I'm saying God showed up type of thing. And so I look up, everybody in the band, everybody in the crew, we're all in this circle and we were holding hands. And I didn't know that at all. And so that was quite amazing. And then, so then I started seeing them a little better. I had to help them then. My pastor said to me, oh, I hear that you're thinking about working with them type of thing. And he said, I just want you to know that I want to expand our reach internationally. And I want you to do that with me. And I realized I had to go because he thought they were of the devil. He actually came to a concert and said, first he's like this, because my skirt's short, I've got chevrons on my nails, yellow and black chevrons. I'm doing the whole thing because at that point, we were kind of showing the fans what to do, along with them, what to wear and stuff. And so I was decked out in the whole thing. And the millstone scripture, better a millstone around your neck and thrown in, that whole thing. So I had to leave my church. My family thought I was crazy. And so they had a manager at the time. They had this manager, I'm not gonna say his name. They had a manager and at the time. And so I decided I've got to help them no matter what. This is it. This is it. This is how do you change the world? This is what I'm supposed to do. So I went back to the person that said that they were going to help me. They helped me sell everything that I had, stocks, bonds, literally everything I had. And I brought it back and we used it. We used it. Oh, every bit of it. And so I had to pay off the manager because by then, Robert and the synergy between Robert and I was unbelievable. It was all miracles. Everything was miracles. We would get together because he really was the visionary. He was the one that stayed up with the black and yellow stripes. He's the one that goes, come on, guys. And they're like, no, we don't want to. Come on, guys. And he would just stay up doing things all night long. And so we paid the manager off and they needed this truck. So we bought him the truck that the manager owned. And then I just started doing the business. You know, Janice was doing a fan club. I don't even think they didn't have fan club back then. At some point she started doing the fan mail. But I got him a little office, Camp Street, and we made that the Stryper office. And then there were 2 little rooms upstairs, and Patty, who's amazing, my assistant, and I lived upstairs and then did all the business from there. And so all of the different things, because it was all my money, I didn't ever have to go and go, is this okay? So when Robert would come up with an idea for huge 666 box lights and the no devil and then the big cross and all of that, it was like, yeah. And for promotion or anything, it was always Robert and I, you know, doing the big BAM covers and doing all the PR. And it was such an electric time because God kept running through our veins. It was all miracles. It was a fabulous time for us to experience.
So if I can ask a quick question, you're telling me, Daryn, after that initial prayer, after the concert, you were like, these guys are who they say they are, and you wanted to help them.
Yeah, I might not have decided to sell everything I had at that point, you know, because I had to get to know them. And plus, they had been burned. Especially Ozzy was the most wary of me. It's like, okay, you know, because they'd been burned. People had told them they were going to do things and they didn't, and all this kind of stuff. So they had to see the God thing coming up in me and things happening. And you know, they really did have their Bible studies all the time in the garage. It had gotten a little big right around when I came around. But what would happen is we'd go, when we got to, we had meetings. And so the band would be all sitting around on the floor at Mom's house. And they'd be waiting, and then Robert and I would like burst in and go, oh, God did this today and that today, and then we got this, and then we got the signs, and then we got the printing, and then this miracle happened, and that miracle happened, and oh my gosh. And it would be like that every time that we would come in. And the poor guys, they didn't have a dime. They had no money, you know, cars breaking down, things not working, and they had wanted to release that EP. Not the EP, the
demos.
Demo tape. And it was like a $500 demo tape or something. They wanted to release that. And it was like, oh, no. And so that was a really fun time doing the yellow and black attack and doing all the artwork and making sure the artwork was right. And then, you know, it came back and it didn't have the initials on it and they weren't pointing the right way. And it was always Robert. Robert was like, oh yeah, this has to happen, that, all Robert. This has to happen and that has to happen. It was a magnificent time. It really was.
So Miss Daryn, you approached your pastor, and you told him that Stryper is the real deal, basically, right? And
Yeah.
that's what he said, that basically he was wanting to expand and wanted you to kind of go with the church, and basically you had to make a choice. And so at some point, how did you come back to Stryper and say, guys, how did it come about that you became one of their co-managers? Like what transpired? Did you go see him again at
I
another?
was a manager at that point. There was no co-managing, no anything.
Right.
Okay, I was called God's groupie. Okay, that's who
Okay.
I called myself. Okay, God's groupie, and I paid off the old manager. So those things that he used to do, I kind of took over. Okay, well, anything that had to do with record company or visuals with Robert or printing or bios. Ron Campbell, the way I know Ron Campbell is because he was a fan back then. He was in high school and I asked him to help write the bio. You know, it was a grassroots campaign. It was magnificent. There were, you know, we had to get the Stryper concert hotline, which was my voice on the Stryper concert hotline. And hi, you've reached the Stryper concert hotline. They are, you know, and all that. And then the Patty, the way I found Patty was so many people or girls just wanted to be around them. So they'd say they'd help or something and they were worthless because all they wanted to do was be around the band. And I just kept watching this girl who nobody would ask her, and she's handing out, you know, like email lists for people to sign, and she's coming up with all these ideas and nobody is asking her to do anything. And she's just like a worker bee, just, you know, not wanting the attention, not wanting any of the limelight. And I'm like, who are you? Anyway, so she started helping with, like, Janice was making buttons and things and fan mail, and she's really good with that. And the fans, because it was all generated by fans, everything that happened. It was like a command center. And at some point, you know, when the record did come out, it was all the kids were going and talking to the record stores and saying, this is in the wrong bin. It's in the gospel section. It's not supposed to be in the gospel section. It's supposed to be in, but those were people. That was a grassroots effort with, you know, like the office, but yet the kids are the ones that did it. They're the ones that made the calls. They're the ones that did the footwork. It was all God generated, amazing. And so as far as, I had the money, so I just did all the stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody
You had the
told me what
means.
to do. Yeah, but I was God's groupie. I wasn't like, I'm the manager, because
Oh, right.
the label I don't need.
You just, if I am interpreting correctly, Miss Daryn, you saw something very real in a way to really make a genuine difference.
Yes,
And the Lord was using you, and he was using Stryper as vessels.
absolutely.
So I get it. I get it
He
100%.
was touching those kids. Nobody else could get to those kids
Right.
and then set them silent for them to hear what they were saying. And, you know, the ministries, the people that came out of that, and the pebbles, you know, when they talk about the pebble, you just don't realize how many lives they touched. I mean, they really are amazing. And sometimes those kids were at their last leg. You know, they were at the end. They were, you know, going to commit suicide. We had some kids, and one guy, he went into his room to commit suicide, and he turned on the record player. His brother had some record in there. He didn't even know what it was, and to cover up the sound. And it was a Stryper song. So he wrote us and said, you know, you saved my life. But there were stories like that all the time. They gave them an open door to open their own hearts up to God. They weren't preaching. They weren't like a lot of Christian bands that get up there and preach, you know. No, they say sometimes if you go to a seminar and you just take home one line or one nugget, that's enough. And it was the nuggets coming from sincerity, because they really were from prayer meetings. I mean, they would pray and get sincerity. The sincerity was amazing. Yet they're normal guys, you know,
right.
Not perfect. All of us are kind of not perfect, but the love for God was what drove them. They had to put on their blinders and just go straight ahead.
So if I may share just a minute, some things that you said, Miss Daryn. You know, number one, I kind of wish that back in the day, I mean, I was born in 71, so I graduated high school in 89. So Stryper was right there for me and with me and all that. And I suppose I kind of looked at not just Stryper, but Barren Cross and all these other bands, Blood Good. They were kind of like my big brothers, you know. And I had been through in the early 80s, and my parents were awesome, and they meant well, and they loved me, and I know that, and they let me put my Stryper posters on the wall, and they took me to the concerts. That said, back in the early 80s, I still got shipped in the car to the backward masking seminars at church and all that, right? I guess they wanted me to just make up my mind, you know, and all that. So, you know, what I was going to say was, I wish that we had the technology now, back when I was a kid, because I have seen so many interviews with Stryper that we couldn't see back in the day, right? If we didn't have that cable TV show or whatever. And I'm thinking, man, I wish I could have seen this back then, because it was such a powerful interview and the way they were carrying themselves. And I'm saying all that because here's a story, true story. My dad built houses. He built houses, and some people were coming to, you know, look at one of the houses. Well, they were coming from out of state somewhere, and we found out they were coming because of they liked the pastor of this one particular church. And, you know, so they did some traveling just to join this church, right? Well, they come over to our house, and my dad and mom are showing them our home, and they get into my bedroom, and I've got the Yellow and Black Attack and the Soldiers posters and 2 to Hell with the Devil posters on my wall. And I'll never forget, the lady goes, she's pointing to Stryper. She goes, "You like those guys?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she was one of those people, Miss Daryn, that if I had a dime for every time somebody said back then, they look like the world, you know? Here is my answer. And friends, and thank you for giving me a minute here, Miss Daryn. I'm unloading something off of my chest right now. Something you said reminded me of this. Looks like the world. Well, you know what? How many crooked politicians are there in 3-piece suits and ties? How many crooked lawyers are there wearing their suits and ties? And all these other people not doing right in suits and ties. And then you got Stryper back then in their spandex. You tell me who looks like the world, because everybody dresses a certain way, and it's what's in your heart. And you can be of the world and wear your neck noose, your tie, and your suit, That felt good to say that, Miss Daryn.
Yeah.
Stryper was the real deal, and they ministered to me. And you know, I was listening to what you're saying about some of those young people back then who had suicidal thoughts, and I never had those at the time, but I had a lot of teen angst. I had just a lot of teen troubles, you know, and the music, the message, the music and the message, you know, within so many Stryper songs and Blood Good and Barren Cross and you name it. My big brothers helped me, and Stryper were part of my big brothers, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes
And
a
so
lot.
that's why part of the reason why we're here is because, you know, we're just trying to follow the Lord, and Stryper has ministered to us. There are many bands that have ministered to me, but I just have to say that, and Rex is the same way. We've agreed, you know, Stryper is the band in our lives with the most longevity, that is still going and that still very much ministers to us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and a band that has learned their own lessons. You know, they've gone through it. There was a point where I had said I would never want to work with another band that hasn't lost everything. Because the first time you come up, it's like, oh, everything's okay and everything's, wow, look, isn't it incredible? Isn't it awesome? But then it's when you lose everything and come back up, it's when you really find out what's important in life and what's important to you in life. And yeah, because also with me diving into the church and thinking, you know, they know more than I do, or, you know, the church is pretty corrupt, a lot of people too. You know, Hillsong just fell, all these different things. People are just people. Right. Jesus is the only, you know, and also sometimes a band or a pastor, they start with all the right intentions, but then they get, you know, influenced by things, and they see money, they see, and then they fall off. But then if they go down to nothing and come back up, they come back stronger and better and knowing what's really important. And I think with Stryper, they've come back up and are amazing. And I think they still have so much to do. I tell Michael all the time, the best is yet to come. He
Oh,
said,
yeah.
you always say that, Daryn, but he's written me back a few times and he said, you know, I think you're totally right. And I bought that last album. Excuse me. That was incredible, going to the top of the charts and getting rave reviews everywhere. And it was just my Mikey. It was just him producing. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I gave him his first car, you know, that's my baby.
And right there, you said something, Miss Daryn. And I agree. Rex, any argument there about Even the Devil Believes being superb?
Oh, well, you know, and some fans are taking grief about this, and I just feel it's nostalgia, but I think me and Ken are on the same page. We probably would say that album is their best album. Yeah. I know a lot of people say To Hell with the Devil, but I just, overall, I'm sorry, this one it's better than To Hell with the Devil.
Soldiers is still pretty special, but yeah, Stryper really knocked it out of the park with Even the Devil Believes. But Miss Daryn, what I was going to say was Kenny told us a neat story. Is the car, you gave Michael a car, maybe a convertible, and then he gave that in turn to Kenny, Kenny Metcalf.
Yes.
Was that, he said that an Amy Grant tape was it, or a CD or tape was in the player. Was that your Amy Grant or was that Michael's?
I don't think Michael had an Amy Grant. I had it, but I don't think Michael did. Although he liked her, you know, we had the same booking agent. John Huey.
Yeah.
And so we would go see Michael W. Smith, and we became friends with Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant, and because same.
I remember, on that note, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Michael and Oz sang on All You're Missing Is a Heartache.
Yeah.
With Michael W. Smith back in the day. But
yes.
Now, Miss Daryn, let's talk about, I want to stay on the Yellow and Black Attack for a second, but for a different reason. Well, let me go ahead and ask this about the Yellow and Black Attack, and then we need to talk about the Soldiers Under Command van on the album cover. But Miss Daryn, with regard to the Yellow and Black Attack, and you mentioned this, you had heard I'm just going to call them the Rocks Regime demos, and Enigma wanted just to release those demos. Was it your idea or Robert's idea, or whose idea to say, you know, we really need to maybe beef these songs up with a little better production and release it, you know, with the missile cover and all? Was that Robert, or was that you, or kind of a collective effort for that 1984 EP, the 6-song EP?
Well, that would have been a dream for them, and so I made the dream happen. God used me to make the dream happen. Well, okay, because Enigma at that point wasn't putting any money into it. It was like, okay, you signed them, but nothing, you know. And so they were just willing to put it out, but they took a chance on him. Enigma took a chance on him. This was the record label for Aleister Crowley, the big Satanist, and then what's Scientology's name? L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah, and the later Spinal Tap, and Motley Crue was with them. But it was just, you know, a little record label where the owners, Wes and Bill Hine, would go surfing, brothers, would go surfing before they came to work, and they owned the record label. But where were we?
the Yellow and Black Attack, and going from the demos to the actual 84 EP, 6-song.
Yeah, so they weren't happy with it. I mean, it wasn't, they knew it wasn't good enough to put out. And so we just made a decision to do it, and then they gave us Ron Gowdy, which was the producer, and we worked together. I actually got arrested on that video. coming out of the I filmed everything back in the beginning. I got a movie camera and I filmed them all the time. And so we were coming out of the recording studio with, it was Michael and I don't know, I think it might've been Tim or somebody. And I was walking backwards as I was filming them, and a policeman stopped me. And I guess I had a ticket that I didn't pay or something like that. So they ended up taking me into jail type of thing. And it was so hilarious because these guys had no money, and they're like going through their pockets trying to find bail money for me, right? And later, God works in mysterious ways. I went in front of the judge for that ticket, and it was a judge that I used to spend my winters in Aspen skiing, and it was a judge I knew from the scene in Aspen. We didn't say that from. He goes, so he knew that I traveled, always traveling Europe or whatever. And so he said, oh, so you were traveling and forgot to pay your ticket.
Right.
And then it was funny because in all my travels, I had realized I found the paperwork where I actually went to school, and I forgot to send it in for that traffic violation. So, it was like a miracle I can talk about now. Sometimes you go through things and you don't realize that it sucks at the point, but then so you have a miracle to talk about later. That was, an experience. But yeah, so that was just a funny little thing, getting arrested.
So, Miss Daryn, did I understand you correctly? Did you say that you have, are we talking video recordings, footage that you shot with the guys from back in the day, like Yellow and Black Attack? And...
But they have it. They have it.
Oh, they have it?
Okay, I was going to say, because somebody, whether it's you or you and Stryper or Stryper, I mean, what fan would not pay good money, such as me and Rex, to see some of this classic footage, you know, on some kind of a
how bad cameras were back then, though. I mean,
I know, but things can be, you know, I know it would never be, you know, crisp, but things can certainly be cleaned up.
I think at some point somebody's going to make a movie. Somebody should make actually a movie of the drama of it, because we did have mafia involved and all kinds of weird stuff too. And
so wait. Can you?
That's the van story.
Say what?
That's the van story.
Okay, so keep moving. Keep moving. Okay, Miss Daryn saying keep moving.
But you know, for instance, a great shot for the movie is in those little prayer circles that we had, the meetings where Robert and I would come in and tell them what businesses had happened that day. In behind us, Janice was boiling the clothes. The boys would boil the yellow dye. They'd buy black and white clothes, these clothes behind me, and then dye them the night before in these huge vats. So, I mean, what a visual for a movie. The steaming of the vats of yellow dye and things like that. So, yeah.
I mean, those videos would definitely be huge historical significance of the band, that just for, you know, that purpose alone, if it could be cleaned up, and yeah, fans would definitely want to see that.
It'll end up in a movie one day.
Yeah,
and Oz took over the camera when I left.
Gotta be strong.